Sure.
All right, teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the show. Welcome to the #1 show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. To my regular listeners, as I always tell you, I have a treat for you. First of all, shout out to Podmatch for making sure that, all the logistical work is out of the way when it comes to finding great guests, and they've done all that work for me. So again, I have another incredible guest. His name is Dave Albin. And for those of you, again, for you regular listeners, just 5 years ago, before I even started this podcast, before I even wrote my first book, I attended and Unleashed the Power Within, which is also known as a UPW. And what happens if you've attended that event, you know what I mean when I say cool mouse, cool mouse, cool mouse, cool mouse, cool mouse. Yes, yes, yes. All right. That is what Tony Robbins has us do on the first day when it's time to walk across that fire. And I did it. I was moved, and I did not even know people like the gentleman that I have on now. I didn't even know people like him existed when it comes to actually having a brand called FireWalk Adventures and all the things that he does. So with all that, Dave, before I make the intro too long, welcome to the show. Great to have you, kind of, because I can get excited, but welcome to the show. Great to have
Thanks.
you.
Yeah, thanks, brother. It's always an honor to come on the show. I mean, you do all the work. All I got to do is come on here and run my pie hole, man. So, thanks for having me. We appreciate it.
Yes, and as I was doing research for this interview, I got to tell you, I just finished just last year a whole year of sobriety. I just turned 35 in this past January, and I finished a whole year of sobriety. I grew up in a Caribbean household where social drinking was the norm, and it's just something that hit me one day to where I want to do different. I don't want to be that guy that's depending on alcohol for fun and things like that. But then I read your story, or I listened to a couple of the clips that you have online, and you were knee deep in whether it was alcohol, drugs, all sorts of things that you were knee deep in. So I think the best way to start the conversation is take us back there and how you were able to I believe it's like 35 years sober now, but kind of take us back to where you started from, so people can see, hey, it doesn't matter where you are today, you can work out of that. So the floor is yours. I kind of give you an open slate to kind of run with it there.
Well, first of all, thank you again, Aswand. Geez, my drinking career started really, really early. On the first day of summer in 1964, it was the very first day, right, of summer. So as a kid, you can imagine what that's like. We all, had summer vacations and the excitement of that first day. So I'm in the TV room and I'm watching whatever, probably some kind of cartoon and eating Captain Crunch or something. And mom comes into the TV room and she said, "David, come into the kitchen. We need to speak with you." So what I think is going to happen is mom's going to tell me that we're going camping, because we did a lot of camping. And so she sets me down at the kitchen table, right? And I'm here and dad's over here and mom's over here. And she puts her hand on my hand, and with tears in her eyes, she looks at me and she goes, "David, what we need to tell you is we're not your parents." Well, what? What does that mean? What do you mean you're not my parents? Of course you're my parents. It's like taking somebody outside and going, "I know the sky looks blue, but it's not blue." Well, it looks pretty blue to me. And that's really kind of how I was thinking about it. And what happened is that when I was 5 years old, my biological mother, I was living in Hollywood, and I was living with two other half brothers, a cousin, and our grandmother, and my mom. 6 of us living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Hollywood, California. My biological father, 2 months before I was born, we believe he committed suicide. And the reason we think that and believe that is because in 1953, something happened to him. I'm not really sure, but to save his life, they put a plate in his head. 1953. And there was a lot of pain associated with it. Well, he used to say to mom all the time, "I don't know how long I can take it." And one day, sure enough, 2 months before I'm born, they're on their way. He says, "I'm going to the grocery store." We never saw or heard from him again. So, I was born to a single mom. Luckily, I was born to, parents, if you will, or family that I think was the greatest, it was the greatest generation of all time. They overcame more adversity than any other generation that I've seen since I've been, on this planet. My parents and my friends that I went to high school with and school with, all of our parents They were badasses, man. They did it all. You know, they had to go through the Great Depression. They went through World War II. And you know what a lot of people don't realize is that in World War II, when all the men were off doing the war, fighting the war, women were home doing what? Everything.
Taking care
They
of
had to build
kids,
Jeeps,
everything.
right?
Everything.
Everything.
Right.
They built trucks, they built tanks, they built Jeeps, they built, you know, munitions, rifles. My mom, my biological mother was known as Rosie the Riveter. And that was an affectionate term they used back then for women that were building airplanes. My mom was out on a wing of a plane driving in rivets, man. So they knew hard work. They knew adversity.
You don't get these stories, and I hate to cut you off there, but
It's okay. Yeah.
It's so important that you guys as listeners understand the importance of these stories, and these things don't make it to mainstream. These things don't make it on textbooks. You have to really go out and seek and see how powerful you can actually be. I actually remember at the event, you know, there was a woman who told Tony Robbins, I can't do anything because, and then he had her kind of flip her mindset, and she goes, I can do anything because I'm like, stop lying to yourself and talking about what you can't do. So
I love that.
Go ahead.
I love that, because that's it, right? Well, what can women do, and can they do this, and they can't do that? Oh, shut the hell up already. Are you freaking kidding me? Without the women in World War II, we would have lost the war, period. End of story. Because if we didn't have them as a backup to do all that stuff, again, we wouldn't have won the war. And what a lot of people also fail to realize is that, like, my dad was in the Army, so he was in Europe fighting the Nazis. Well, my best friend's dad was in the Navy, an officer. He was at Pearl Harbor, so he was fighting the Japanese. So there were two wars going on at the same time here. A lot of people don't even realize that. Go study your history book.
Yeah.
And so again, it was that's who raised us. So yeah, when you get around a baby boomer, are baby boomers badasses? Oh yeah, we are, because we were raised by the greatest generation of all time. So anyway, long story short, you know, mom was working up the street. My biological mother was working up the street at the Roosevelt Hotel, and she was a server. And you know, and one thing led to another, and she got to a point where she couldn't feed all six of us, and so she literally went to her oldest sister, Pat, and said, "Hey, Pat, I can't feed David. Would you and Bob adopt him?" And they did. So Bob, again, he's career military, highly decorated, World War II, career officer, National Guard, Army. So, you know, we had a nice house. We always had things. I never needed anything. You know, there was always food on the table. There was never anything other than, you know, a nice house and all that. So shortly after they told me this, right, that on that first day of summer in '64, that they weren't my parents, both of them started drinking. And that's when shit hit the fan. Literally, because these two amazing people turned into two people that you just don't recognize them anymore. Pat, my mom, if you will, she was kind of a fun drunk, a happy drunk. She'd pass out at the kitchen table. She wasn't violent or mean. She would just pass out. And then Bob, not so much. He, you know, I think he was dealing with a lot of PTSD from the war and all that. And so he had issues. And when he drank alcohol, the meanness, the nastiness would come out. So you had to be really, really careful, because he would become very, very volatile. And so shortly after they told me this, they both went to the grocery store one day. Well, I don't know what alcohol is. I have no references other than all of a sudden it's showing up in my life and they're drinking it. And I see these two wonderful people turned into people that weren't so wonderful anymore. And so they went to the grocery store one day, and I knew where the booze was. They were hiding it right over there in plain sight. So I went over there. Now, I understand, this is 1964, man. You know, I'm a young kid. And so I went over there and I grabbed it and I took a coffee cup and I poured it in and I drank it about half full, and it was brandy. And you know what? Aswand, I never had a chance, man. I totally believe 100% that I was an alcoholic right on the spot, because I started acting out alcoholically from the very beginning. And so it escalated. It just got worse and worse and worse. And by the time I was a junior in high school, they called me into the principal's office one day and said, "Albin, out. You're done. You're dangerous to the school. You're a danger to yourself and others. We can't have you in the school." So they kicked me out.
Takes you out of the
do what?
Takes you out of the school.
Yeah. So I got expelled from high school is what happened.
Before you go for it, I teach now. And one of the gripes, one of the things I hate about our school system is exactly what you just said. Instead of calling for help, instead of asking what's going on, instead of doing anything, kicking a person out of the school does not just solve the problem. All right, just kicking kids away. I mean, I'm teaching now, and we are just going through this training about how we actually have to ask kids what's going on though. How can we provide resources? How can we help?
Yeah.
Opposed to doing exactly what you just said and kick a kid out of school, and all of a sudden you are just someone in society that we recognize as, or we don't even want to recognize it. We don't even try to help. We got to do better than that. Educators,
Yeah, I agree.
we got to do a better job in making sure because I'm sure if they would just ask the question, how can we help? You would have been young enough to just say, hey, I'm going through such and such, but it's not that environment. You create an environment where it's a factory where we kick kids out. And that is an issue that we have got to fix. So
I was violent.
yeah,
They probably did the best thing. I was drinking, I was bringing alcohol into the school, I was bringing drugs into the school. I was well trained in weapons because my dad was so skilled. I started shooting almost competitively as a young boy. My dad bought me my first 22 rifle, and I think I was 9 years old. And so by the time I was 11 years old, I was shooting M1 carbines, 30 calibers, 30-06s. I mean, I was pretty dialed in. So the bottom line was, they kicked me out. Well, the interesting part, when they kicked me out, I didn't care. I could care less. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to make a living now because they kicked me out of high school. As a matter of fact, there was a song back then by Paul Simon. And the lyrics were, when I think back to all the crap I learned in high school, it's a wonder I can think it all. And that was like my theme song, right? And so the other thing about that was, I was already an entrepreneur, in spirit, for sure, because I had jobs as a kid that was entrepreneurial driven. For example, I lived across the street from a golf course, literally right across the street. Well, here's what I learned about golfers at a young age. They suck. They're not very good at what they do, right? So they would always hit balls into the lake, and they'd always hit them over the fence. Well, guess what? I go get on my bicycle, I'd go ride the perimeter, and I'd find golf balls. I'd bring them home, I'd clean them.
Wow.
The boxes that the new balls came in, they would throw them out at the clubhouse. I would go over there in the trash, take those boxes, take the balls I found, put them in the boxes, and go back into the parking lot of the golf course. And you know what I did?
Wow. Yeah, reselling things, man.
Absolutely. And so,
yeah.
right? I had a paper route. That's a 7-day-a-week job.
Yeah.
You got to go get your papers every day, put them in your saddlebags, put them on your bike, drive your route, deliver the papers. You had to collect all the money. You had to do it at Saturday and Sunday. I delivered the afternoon route, but on Saturday, Sunday, you had to go pick up your papers at 5 o'clock in the morning. And so that's entrepreneurial for sure. My mom, Pat, grew beautiful flowers in the backyard. They were gorgeous. Well, she came out of the Great Depression. She could grow anything, but she grew thousands of flowers in our backyard. Well, she would take those flowers, arrange them. She had a beautiful eye for color, and then she would cut them at an angle, not at the bottom. She cut them at an angle. And what that did, I found out later, is it opened up more surface area so that the flower could get more water up into it, so it would last longer. The other thing she did, when she put them in a bucket and sent me out on the street corner to go sell them, she put a little bit of 7-Up into that water. Well, I don't know what it is, but something magical happens when you put 7-Up and water and flowers, because my flowers as a kid, right? Yeah. They would outlast the local florist 3-1. Wow. So here's a kid selling flowers on the street corner for a better price, and the flowers lasted longer.
Yeah.
So I learned some negotiation skills at doing that too. Here's the other thing I learned at a young age. There's money out there. Go get it.
Amen.
Right? That was like my theme song. And I believed that because I had seen it happen over and over and over. So my point is, when I got kicked out of high school, I didn't care. I didn't see that it was going to bother me at all. And it didn't.
To be an entrepreneur at that point.
Yeah, I was already, and I went and got a really good job. And I needed a good job. In fact, I went out, I bought a brand new Mach 1 Mustang, gorgeous car. I moved out of my parents' house. I moved into an apartment in Belmont Shore, California, a really nice place. And I needed to make a lot of money. I had a drug problem, big one. And so, once you get into that mindset or that zone, if you will, it just gets worse. You start hanging around the wrong people, you start making bad choices, and it starts to escalate. Well, by the time I got to AA that day on June 8th of 1988, I was in my third marriage. In fact, the woman I married was a bartender and she had 3 kids. And I think one of the reasons I married her is because I thought, wow, you know what? If I marry her, I have to help take care of these kids and that'll help slow me down or, correct this bad behavior, alcoholism, drug addiction.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't. It didn't. And she was a bartender. So how convenient was that?
Right.
I literally, when I woke up, back to your question, when I woke up on June 8th, 1988, that morning, I said, that's it. We're done. I'm out. I can't do this anymore. Right. There was so much physical and emotional pain. And the only thing I thought to do in that moment was load your pistol and put a bullet in your head. Because when you do that, the pain's going to go away. Because I wasn't thinking, there's heaven or hell, or anything. I didn't give a rat's ass about any of that. I was in pain. It had been, at me for a long time, and I wanted it to go away. And so that's what I thought to do. And then, as I'm preparing to do that, I literally put the pistol in my mouth twice that morning. I remember thinking, whoa, wait a minute, dude. If you pull that trigger, what do you think is going to happen to those 3 kids and their mom upstairs that you love and care about? You're going to ruin their life because who do you think is going to clean up this mess? And so I had a moment of compassion, and I thought, you can't do that, man. You cannot. You'll ruin their life. And so the next thought I had was, well, what are you going to do? You got to do something. You can't go into this tomorrow with the same, pain and suffering. And then I said, the thought was, well, why don't you call Alcoholics Anonymous? And what's interesting about that moment? I didn't know who AA was. Where the hell did that thought come from? I'd never been to AA. I didn't know anybody in AA. I didn't know anything about it. And yet there it was. And so I did. I picked up the phone. I called AA and I got this amazing woman on the phone. She was the gatekeeper. Over the years, I don't even know her name, but I've affectionately nicknamed her Madge. And the reason I did is because she talked like this. She probably smoked 2 packs of Pall Mall non-filters a day, right? Uh-huh. And dude, she was a badass. She was a gatekeeper. It was her job to interview you. And if she heard the right thing from you, she would call somebody to come pick you up and take you to an AA meeting. And that's exactly what happened. She called a guy by the name of Lauren, and Lauren came and picked me up. And I went to 4 meetings my first day. I went to a 12:30, a 4:30, a 6:30, and an 8:30. It was the Stepping Stones group of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it was in Fairfax, Virginia. And man, I can't remember anywhere in my life where I felt more at home. The 2 places I ever felt at home back in those days was 2 places. It was a shitty, grungy, nasty little bar somewhere, dim lit, so I could go hide in the back and drink myself into oblivion, or Alcoholics Anonymous. Because I felt at home there. I believed in those men. They believed in me. I heard their stories. So just like me. And they cared. And they loved me until I could learn to love myself. And so just a few days ago here on June 8th, I just picked up another chip for 36 years. And so that's where another big term came in my life, because at the time I got sober is when the personal development industry kind of collided in my life at the same time, because I was up late one night because I had insomnia. I couldn't sleep, right? And there he was, Mr. Enthusiasm, a young, vibrant, Tony Robbins owned the airways back then for the infomercial through Gunther Ranker, and he was selling a program called Personal Power. And it was a 30-day program. And they would send it to you in a big box. It came on these little white things called cassette tapes.
Actually, great about what those are.
Right? Yeah. Some of your listeners aren't even going to know what the hell those are, right? You got to go to the Smithsonian.
They don't even know what CDs are, to be honest with you.
Right. Well, that's my point. Go to the Smithsonian. They're there. They're right next to 8-track tapes, CDs, and reel-to-reel. So anyway, I don't know, man. He sent it to me. I plugged them in. I did what the man taught me to do, and it worked. Mm-hmm. Well, I ended up loaning my program to a buddy of mine who was also in AA. Well, years later, like 7 years later in 1995, remember, this is all going down in 88 and 89. In 1995, my buddy Dan called me on the phone. And he said, hey, man, did you know that Tony Robbins is coming to town? And I said, no, man, I had no clue. And he goes, oh, dude. He's like, come on.
Right.
We got to go, man. Come on, go with me. You got me into this. I'm like, all right, sure. I'll go. Love to go see Tony. Let's do it. He goes, great. Let me call you back. Well, he calls me back an hour later and he goes, done. Here's what they told us to do. Number one, drink a lot of water. You must stay hydrated. This is a 4-day event, so you got to drink a lot of water.
Now, this was this UPW? Was he calling it UPW back then?
Yes. Yeah. This was UPW in 1995 in Rest.
Same process. All right.
Yeah, same event, just years before you went.
Right.
Few changes, obviously, but and so they said bring a lot of snacks because you're going to spend a lot of time in the room. Really? Anybody that's been to a Tony event knows you're going to spend a lot of time in the room, right?
And it's going to be cold too, by the way.
It's going to be cold. Yeah, if you sit up front, bring a parka because we have seen snow squalls up in the front of the house. He said, bring a good attitude and be ready to play full out. And I said, Dan, how much was the ticket? And he said, $695. I'm like, $695 in 1995? What's that worth today?
Yep.
Like 1.2, 1.3 million? I mean, give me a break. Buy Bitcoin, right? So anyway, he goes, don't worry, you can pay me back. And I'm like, yeah, don't worry, I'll pay. It's no, it is what it is. Well, just as he's getting ready to get off the phone, he goes, oh, wait. I forgot. I got to tell you something, man. I don't want to leave this out. This is really important. Hell, I don't want to forget, man. We're going to be doing a FireWalk. And I'm like, my brain goes, like hell we are.
I didn't find that out until the myself. I had no idea. So how I heard about it was there was a member of the crew and he had got a discount on tickets, but that FireWalk thing did not hit me until the day I got there. And this is what I hope I don't spoil it for anybody.
No, you're fine, man.
This is what he said the first day. He goes, look, there's nobody telling you have to walk on fire, guys. There's no, consent or whatever. But then he looks at the crowd. He goes, fuck it, you're here anyway, right, guys? And everyone goes, so it's like I had to do it at that point. At that point, it was like something in you that makes it say, let's go get it. Let's go get it, man.
Right. Well, I was going to be a little more stubborn than that. So because the big day comes, right? Tony took the stage at 2:00 in the afternoon. Well, the next thing I know, it's after midnight.
Yes, yeah,
right. Been in a room with Tony for 10 hours. You've got to be kidding me. Right. And all of a sudden, Tony goes, "Take your shoes off," and I'm like, "Oh no, I don't think so, pal. I know where you're going with that. Nice try. I ain't doing that. I'm not taking my shoes off." Well, I got a hell of a problem. I'm in a room with 3,500 people and my buddy, and guess what they're all doing?
Taking their shoes off.
Come on, people, really? Right. So I'm like, so what am I going to do? Not take my shoes off and walk out there and have 3,500 people make fun of me because I've got my shoes on? Right. No, can't have that. So now I'm starting to, I got to figure out what my plan is, right? So I'm like, look, just relax. Take your damn shoes off. And when you get out there, go ditch your buddy. Should be easy to do. There's 3,500 people here. Mm-hmm. And go hide in the back. Nobody's going to know. Well, other than me.
Right.
Well, as you know, it gets worse, right? So as he's getting ready to take everybody out into this big parking lot.
Fresh coals.
Well, there's that too. But even before we get out there,
yeah, he
gets everybody chanting and clapping.
Yeah.
Right? Remember? Everybody's walking out there going, yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
And then when you get out there, it gets worse again because he's got African drummers.
Mm-hmm.
Dun, 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 dun. You got to be kidding me.
It is an action ceremony, right?
Yeah. What a dog and pony show, man. Yeah. So we're walking out there and I see my buddy walking in front of me and I just go, boop, I'm gone. I ditch him. Really easy to do. So then I go hide in the back. So that's my strategy, right? And I'm thinking it's a pretty good one. Well, no, it's not. Why? Because Tony Robbins knows that the FireWalk is probably the most life-changing experience any human on earth will ever go through. He knows. He did his research. He knows what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so he also knows there's people like me. And he also knows if we don't do the FireWalk that night, we're not going to have the paradigm shift. So what's he do? He trains people to come find you. Oh God, it was shitting me.
Oh, man. See, I didn't know that part.
Right? Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, he's got the plan, right?
Oh,
So I'm back there all hidden, thinking I got it all figured out. And here comes this dude, comes out of nowhere. He makes eye contact with me, and I don't know, Aswand, he gets 15 feet from me, maybe 20 feet, and he's looking at me. He won't take his eyes off me. And he's looking at me like a dog that hears a funny noise, like looking at me like there's something wrong with me.
right.
And he goes, and he points at me, man. He goes, "Hey, man, are you okay?" And when we're not okay, what do we say?
I'm
We
fine.
lie.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I'm good. Nothing to see here, pal. Move along.
Right.
And he goes, "Hey, man." He goes right for the kill shot, right? He goes, "Hey, man, you gonna walk tonight?" And I'm like, I'm like offended. I'm pissed. I'm like, "Absolutely not." And he goes, "Oh, hey, man, that's cool." He goes, "No problem. We don't want you to do anything you don't want to do." Right? Kind of what he said in the room. Yeah, we don't. But since you're here, right? He said, "Hey, man, no problem." And I thought, cool, this guy's going to get me out of here. Well, no, he's not. He's setting me up. Because the next question he asked me, and by the way, I don't know who this guy is to this day. This guy changed my life.
Right.
And he changed the life of tens of thousands of other people too, because without him, I wouldn't be where I am today at all. None of this would have come around.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, "Hey, man, wouldn't you at least like to watch?" And I thought, sure, I'll watch, no problem. Yeah, it should be fun. Let's go watch these people burn their feet off. And he's like, "Well, listen, man, you can't see anything from back here. I'm 100 yards away. I can't see anything. I got 3,500 people in front of me. I can hear it. It's going on, right? They're clapping. They're chanting. They're already firewalking. They're screaming and yelling in the celebration and, jumping up and down because they did it. There's a big fire over here in the corner. It's huge, right? It's 35 feet. I don't know, 35 feet wide, maybe 70 feet long. And, and how you set this up logistically, how do you firewalk thousands of people? Well, you start off with a big ass fire and you let it burn all day, right? And you get hardwood, oak, hickory, locust. And it's got to be seasoned. And you just keep putting cord after cord after cord of wood on it. And you stoke it all day. Well, at the end of the night, it renders. Mm-hmm. And then you've got this big, giant pile of blue coals. It's gorgeous, just beautiful. So what we do is we take a wheelbarrow over there, a steel wheelbarrow, obviously, and you load the coals into the wheelbarrow. Then you bring a wheelbarrow in between two lanes of sod, of grass, which is, 3 feet wide, 15, 18 feet long. And all they do is just take a flathead shovel from that wheelbarrow full of coals and they sprinkle them on top of the grass. They call it a fire lane, and that's what you walk on. Well, so I take the bait. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go watch. So he goes, well, just get in line and eventually you'll get up there to where you can see it, which he's telling the truth. He's being congruent with his word. Mm-hmm. And so I did. I'm not going to walk. I'm just going to go watch these people, right? But again, I got 3,500 people standing in front of me as I'm starting this. I can't see anything.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I don't know, I'm there a few more minutes and another stranger comes up to me. Two guys, don't know who they are to this day. And he whispers in my ear. And he said, he knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go. And pew, this guy just disappeared into the night. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what? What does that mean? What do you mean he knows when you're ready? When he says go, you go. Yeah. I don't know what that means, right? But he just disappeared into the night. Yeah. And so now I'm kind of walking along and I'm walking along. And all of a sudden I get to a point that I can see, right? I can see at an angle there that they're walking, they're doing it.
Yeah, they're doing it.
Every race, right? Every race, every creed, every color. Well, I'm also not paying attention to what's going on in front of me because now I'm staring at it. I'm mesmerized. I can't take my eyes off it. Kind of like the car wreck. You say you're not going to look at it, right? But we do it anyway. Right. And all of a sudden, the next thing I know, I'm not paying attention and boom, guess where I am?
It's your turn to go.
I'm at the front of the line. And I'm like, how the hell did I get here? Mm-hmm. And so now I'm staring down at those coals, right, on that fire lane, and they're bright red.
I think he told us not to do.
Yeah, I'm staring into the abyss. I'm doing everything you're not supposed to do, right? I'm staring into the abyss. The wheelbarrow's there. I can feel the heat coming off. Mm-hmm. My heart is beating so hard it's going to jump out of my chest any minute. I'm scared to death. Well, there's a trainer standing right there. And all of a sudden the trainer goes, eyes up. Like, you idiot. And all of a sudden now my eyes are up. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I was in a room with Tony for 10 hours. What's he tell you to do? Keep your eyes up. Don't stare at what you fear.
Right.
It'll demobilize you.
Yeah.
Interesting metaphor.
Right.
Look to the celebration end. That's where the reward is. Focus on it.
Yes.
It all came back to me being in the room. And all of a sudden the trainer goes, squeeze your fist and say yes. And I went, yes. And he went, stronger. And I went, yes. Well, he could tell I was leaving a lot on the table. I wasn't in a peak state and he knew it.
Right.
And so he got in my face, screamed at me, and now I'm pissed off, right? So it's like fight or flight. Right. So I threw my hands in the air and I screamed yes as loud as I could, yes. And he goes, go, go, go. Boom. I took off.
Yeah.
Well, remember the guy? He knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go. I did.
Right.
Well, here's the first thing I learned about FireWalk. You'll appreciate this. When you take that first step, you'll take the second, third, fourth, and fifth. I guarantee you. So, as you know, we position two guys at the end of the fire lane to catch you.
They come down, right.
To catch you, right? And they're like, stop, wipe your feet and celebrate. Right. And I'm wiping my feet and I'm celebrating like crazy. And all of a sudden, I realize I burnt myself, or at least I think I have.
Right.
I look at my feet. No, you're not. You're not burned. Your feet are dirty. They're filthy.
Yeah.
But they're not burned, either one of them. And I never found anybody at that event that night that had burned themselves, because I even started asking people, hey, man, did you walk? Yeah. Did you burn yourself? No. They're almost like, you idiot. Of course I didn't. Mm-hmm. It was like, it was obvious that we didn't. We're walking on coals at 1,000 degrees, so we're not burning ourselves.
Have you ever met anyone that had burnt themselves, like, in your entire?
I mean, I've done some really intense fire walks where they're like, 100 feet long, and I've gotten some blisters. But burnt myself, like I'd need hospitalization? No, I've never seen anybody burn themselves where they would need to be hospitalized. No, ever. And I've walked, between Tony and I've walked 500,000 people now.
Right.
So no.
So true. Nope. Peak state, man. That state is so important.
That peak state, because your body knows what to do to protect itself. Absolutely. Got all the adrenaline and all the stuff going on. Right. So anyway, in that moment when I firewalked, it was like the most, and I'm sure you can relate to this. It was one of the most exhilarating moments of my life, because I'm like, okay, if I can walk on coals that are 1,000 degrees and not burn myself, what else can I do?
Right.
What other lies have I told myself where I allowed fear to control my life? Because here's what we know, right? You talk to most business owners and entrepreneurs or professional athletes and Olympians and these kinds of people that have achieved greatness, is that here's what we know. What doesn't challenge you doesn't change you. It's not going to happen. And we also know that the fears we don't overcome become our limits. Right. And so you either learn to master fear or it masters you. It becomes your master, period. There's no gray area here. It's hot or cold, black or white here, man. Right. And so, again, in that moment, you think you can do anything, right? That night, I'm like, hey, guys, where's the bus? Let's go climb Mount Everest, right? Because you do. It's exhilarating, right? It's unbelievable. Well, this is a 4-day event. That was day one that night. And now we're coming into day 2. And this is where it got really interesting for me and why I'm here. So when I came in the next morning, we're standing in the foyer getting ready to go into the venue. 3,500 people. We all firewalked the night before. The night before, I didn't know any of these people, and I could care less. The next morning, I had a love for all of them. I felt like I knew all these people my entire life. I'm watching everybody, right? We're waiting to go into the venue, right? And they're laughing and they're crying. There were people crying. They were hugging, and I mean really hugging. You know what I mean? Holding each other and connecting at such a high level. And I'm watching everybody. I'm going, really? Did we drink the Kool-Aid last night? Sure as hell did. And so it was beautiful. I had never seen people get along, a bunch of strangers, humanistically. I've never seen anything like it other than a Tony Robbins seminar ever in my life to this day. Right. So I was like, wow. what a beautiful thing that this FireWalk created for us going forward into this event. Well, later in the event, I met one of Tony's trainers, a guy by the name of Ted Macy. Him and his wife, Mary, two beautiful people. I love them to death. They do real estate in Atlanta. Became really good friends with them. So I'm just talking to Ted. Hey, look at me. I'm talking to one of Tony's trainers, right? And I said, so Ted, tell me, what's it like being in this environment on a regular basis? Which was a very empowering question, because he goes, oh, are you kidding me? It's unbelievable. And I'll tell you what, you need to do whatever you want to be in this environment. I got an option for you. I'm like, okay. He said, see all those people standing over there with the black shirts with the pink writing on the back? I said, yeah. He goes, dude, they're volunteers. They are people just like you who came here, wanted to come back and give back. So here's what you do. When you go home, call Robbins Research and ask them to send you a volunteer crew application. Okay, I did that. They sent it to me. I filled it all out. I sent it back. And like 9 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail after the event and said, Dave Albin, congratulations. You've been selected to crew with the Anthony Robbins Company. Holy shit. So there I am. I'm in the environment.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you fill out the application, it's like 7 pages long. It's a lot of stuff.
Right.
And the one thing they knew about me is that I had a military background. The other thing they knew about me is I had a security background. Well, I was a shoo-in to put me on the security team, the security detail, to help take care of Tony's celebrities, which I ended up doing, which we could have a whole nother podcast to talk about that by itself. The other thing is I lived on a farm. So they assumed I knew stuff, right? That I knew how to use a log splitter. Do I know how to use a hatchet? Do I know the difference between oak and hickory and locust and hardwood and softwood? Yeah, of course I do. And so they put me on the fire team. Well, I crewed, I don't know, maybe a half a dozen times, which my wife was not happy about it. She didn't like it at all. And the reason is because even though I came back pretty motivated, I was spending $1,500 to $2,000 every time I went as a volunteer.
Yeah, this is on your own dime, right?
This is on your own dime, big time. Well, then they offered me a subcontractor's position, which meant that they would pay my way, they would pay for my hotel, they pay me a per diem. And so instead of going into the red every time I went to an event, I was at least in the black. They did something else that was really smart. They gave me a free ticket for your spouse. And so I brought her.
Yes.
And so, you know, she went through it. And then, you know, once we graduated on day 4, that night we were taking a walk on the beach in Fort Lauderdale. And she looked at me and she goes, okay, I get it. I drank the Kool-Aid. This dude's a badass. If you want to run with this dude, go for it. As long as we don't have to take any money out of our savings account, I'm good. You roll with it.
Yeah.
And so that opened the door. Right. Well, that was all going down in 95 and 96. And then in 2003, my life forever changed again. I got offered the captain's position. Robbins offered me the captain's position. And what that meant was I would take over all of Tony's FireWalks globally. When we were in negotiations, if you will, I said, I got a pretty big challenge here. I homeschool my kids. I don't think this is going to work for me. And they stepped right up. Robin stepped right up. He said, hey, what if we pay to have your kids go on the road with us? Would that make a difference?
Right.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah.
You know, I'm homeschooling my kids. In fact, their first event when I accepted the position was Sydney, Australia. So there were my kids, 6 and 9 years old. You know,
compared to what they would be getting in a typical school system.
Well, we knew. I knew I wanted to homeschool them. I wasn't going to leave that to chance.
All right.
So there's my kids on the road with mom and dad and Tony Robbins. And if you don't think that doesn't influence your kids, believe me, it really did, and it has. And so that happened in 2003, 2005. We went to London. That's where we set the world record. We firewalked 12,300 people. Now, I say world record, let me be clear about something. Guinness Book of World Record was not there. However, that's the biggest firewalk in our planet's history. There's nothing that's even come close to that, unless you go to another Tony Robbins seminar where it was, 9,000 or 10,000, something like that. So that happened in 2005. And then in 2014, my life forever changed again. I'm driving down the road, my phone rings and it's Google. Okay, what can I do for you? Well, you're the Dave Albin that does the FireWalks for Tony Robbins? Yes. What can I do for you? Well, if you're not under any contractual obligation or non-compete, we'd like to talk to you about hiring. Well, no shit. Well, homeboy's a free agent. What you got?
Hired for Google?
Yeah, they hired me in 2014. Yeah, they knew, they found me. They wanted to create a paradigm shift. Google knows what's going on. It's not like they don't know. It's not like they don't know how to create incredible life-changing experiences. So they called me.
Right.
And that's when the light bulb went off. In fact, when I was out there after the first event, I've done 2 events for Google. After one of the events, we were having lunch, and I was sitting at a table with some of the other executives. And one of the females, one of the girls, turned to me and she said, "Hey, Dave, listen, I'm not here to tell you what to do, but you know what? If you were to start your own business, you've got no competition, and you probably never will."
Right, right.
I mean, because you're the guy. You're the guy that can create a paradigm shift experience so powerful that there's nothing like it on earth. And she said, my belief is corporate America will eat you alive. They'll be all over you. And so, Google's telling me I should start my own business. Maybe, just maybe, I should listen to them.
Yeah.
And that's when FireWalk Production was born in 2014. And she turns out she was right. Shortly after Google, I went to NASA, and then Notre Dame, and then Virginia Tech, and then Remax, and Heineken, and YMCA, and the EO organization. And it just went crazy.
Right.
Or what I like to say, since 2014, since we started, we've been going hot and heavy ever since.
Yeah, and there's a lot you shared there, and I want to make sure we don't brush off everything that you shared. And it's important for you listeners to understand you never despise small beginnings, and you have got to never, ever, ever take for granted what it is you do for a living. Never take for granted how you help someone, because I'm thinking, as you were talking, Dave, I'm thinking back in your head where you have a pistol in your mouth, ready to pull the trigger, and you decide to call AA, and this lady makes sure she sends someone to you. This is not like who actually goes to school and says, "Hey, I want to work for AA." But she takes her job that serious. You know what I'm saying?
They're volunteers, right? They don't get paid for any of that. Right?
They don't get paid at all for this. And that ultimately essentially saved your life, because it created a home environment. And it's because she takes her job that seriously. So the biggest takeaway, again, I'm listening to, I almost forgot I was interviewing you for a second there, because I'm just like I would, I'll be listening to my podcast. And I'm taking away, make sure whether you're volunteering, make sure whether you're doing what the quote unquote little job, you can save someone's life. You can save someone's life simply by doing your job and taking your job seriously. And again, doing something that you do not get paid for. Second thing we got to take away is the value of marketing. All right. So many of you guys are timid marketers. You got to be a bold marketer. He knows AAA just because it's out in the atmosphere. He doesn't, again, he's so knee deep in the drugs and the alcohol, but AA is just something he hears about. It's going to save me in this moment because it's something you hear. And then the fact that Tony Robbins he probably must have been constantly, I even still get the messages and the emails and the clips to this day. You're going to get these clips. You're going to get Tony Robbins, "Hey, sign up for this, sign up for this." Him and Dean, I think it's like Dean Graziano or something like that. But constantly be getting these messages. Do not be shy about that. Make sure you send your message, put your message out there as often and as boldly and as aggressively as you possibly can, because you do not know who's going to be listening to it, and you don't know what kind of flowers can be growing from that. So, with all that, that makes me kind of think about, how do you grow your business? Now that you have FireWalk Adventures and now that you're going strong, what are the things, like, who do you look to serve? How do you, I want to kind of give you the platform to speak on your current company, your current situation.
Well, first of all, you can't contact, I don't think you can contact a potential client or one of your clients too many times. If they're interested in you and what you're doing, they're going to be interested in what you're sending them. I think consistency is the key to everything. I think consistency beats skill any day of the week. And so consistency to me is really, really important. I've learned how to target market my clients. So I can go out into the world and say, all right, look at XYZ company. What do they do? Well, they're a camping company. Oh, cool. All right. Well, you think they'd be interested in doing a FireWalk? So you do a little research about their CEO, and you go, oh yeah, look at this guy. Oh, he'd be all over it. So I use video boxes. It's a thing you send, and they open it up, and it's really cool packaging. It's got my logo, the really pretty stuff you're seeing over my shoulder here and on my shirt here. And they open that up, and as soon as they open it up, a video starts. And it's like, and I personalize it. It would say, hey, Aswand, this is Dave, man. Hey, just wanted to check in with you real quick. Want to show you something really awesome. Check this out. Boom. The next thing you know, you're showing them firewalking.
Right.
And they're so powerful. And the beauty about that is you can get right through the gatekeeper. Not only can you get through the gatekeeper, right, you'll get the gatekeeper to take your message to the CEO or the president or the owner of the company. They'll hand deliver it for you, because when they open it up, they're so blown away, right, that it works fantastic. They really, really work well. Now, they're not cheap, but I don't care about that.
You don't want cheap.
If I want to talk to the CEO of Pepsi, or you know what I mean, if I want to talk to the CEO of General Motors, then guess what? I don't mind investing $40 with an opportunity to do a $30,000-$40,000 event for them.
Right.
And again, that's on me. I do my research. And so, it's like anybody else that I do business with.
So
like these guys, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was just going to show, this is Zippo, right? This is a Zippo lighter company, man.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Right. You're going to light a fire. You got to use something, right? Why not use a Zippo? I love Zippo. I love Zippo.
So this is kind of new to me, because again, I was a part of the event, but what's kind of the result? What do the ones that you've done firewalks with, what's the result that they normally get out of it after they're done with you?
So I changed it up. I mean, I get it that the firewalk's really powerful. I understand that. I understand it creates the paradigm shift. I understand the camaraderie and how it levels up someone's belief and their, just everything about them, right? Because it all comes down to self-worth. And so that next morning, after we all did the firewalk, all of our self-worth had been raised. So I recognize that. So what I do with my clients is I add 4 other dynamics. Yeah, the firewalk's great, but the other thing I add to the firewalk, and to your question, is the board break. So this is a martial arts thing, right? People don't get a chance to break a board unless you join a martial arts studio, right? And I love doing this with kids too, because when you're doing it with adults too, I can tell you both of them love it. So what we do is we do the board break, right? So when they get the board, we give them the board. I have them write something on front of the board they want to move towards. I have them write something on back of the board they want to move away from. Then I have them write anybody's name on that board that they're in conflict with. Meaning if forgiveness or reconciliation is part of that relationship, it ends tonight. We're done. You're going to give it to the fire. Don't carry around a bunch of resentments. It's stupid. It's not smart. And it ends tonight. And then to create the rite of passage, right? The rite of passage is the key. I have them write anybody's name on that board that they've lost. It's a big deal. And so then we take them outside. We have our board break stations. Boom, they break the board. We walk them in a circle. They get to come around. They get to throw that board into the fire. This is all being videoed. They're getting the photography of all this. And then we firewalk them.
Right. That's okay. That I'm picturing it in my head how cool that would be, because now
it's
and then you phone it in. Cool.
Right.
Yes. And then you get in the state and then you move forward.
Two more things. Yeah, more pieces. Two more pieces of that puzzle. All right. So they board break. They throw the board in the fire. We firewalk them. And when it's stop, wipe your feet and celebrate. Right? It's stop, wipe your feet, celebrate, and smell this. This is an essential oil, 4 blends from doTERRA. And so what's this?
I had a client. Well, I know some people that sold for doTERRA.
So the bottom line is that in that moment, when you firewalk, in that exact moment, stop, wipe your feet, and celebrate, smell this. Mm-hmm. Guess what? When you're in that exhilarating state, in that you catch them in that moment and they smell this, you can give this to them. Mm-hmm. And a month later, or 2 months later, or 10 years later, they can smell that. And guess what it does?
Brings them right back.
It takes them right. They're so anchored to the smell. It's the strongest of all the modalities. It takes them right back to that moment when they firewalk.
Yeah, and that sense when they're just going through it,
they're going through it, man. You pull that out, smell it, boom, put you in a peak state. Then the other thing we do after the firewalk is I put everybody in a circle. Mm-hmm. You'll love this. And then I say, all right, look across the crowd and make eye contact with somebody that you don't know. Mm-hmm. And so they do that. And then once I see everybody's got a partner, I'll say, go over to that person and stand 2 feet in front of them. And the next thing, while they're doing that, I put them in what's called the heart hug, which means that we hug this way so that my heart is on top of their heart. Mm. Normally we hug the other way, right? This is the opposite. Then I have them close their eyes and I have them take 3 deep diaphragmatic breaths. And when they go into or come out of that second breath, something magical happens between those 2 people. Guess what it is? Their hearts calibrate. They start beating at the same time.
Man.
So now there's a connection with that human being. And then I have them step back and I have them say these words: I love you, I thank you, I appreciate you, and I love you. To a perfect stranger. Yeah. So yeah, it takes you out of your comfort zone. The men hate this shit. The girls love it, right? But the guys are like, oh shit, man, you're making me feel. And so I'll do that a few times. And then the next thing I know, I've got the entire firewalkers, all of them together, and now their hearts are beating at the same time.
Yeah, I've actually had other people on the show who also went to UPW, and they were telling me how after they're hugging total strangers, and the key to that is making sure you've connected that community. And it's not just a one-on-one thing. I mean, I actually just went as a solo person, and I ended up having, great relationships and all that. So
yeah, of course.
I honestly, I can probably talk to you for hours and upon hours, but I do want to be respectful of your time. Can you just tell people how they can get in touch with you? What's the best way if they want to, move forward with the Firewalk adventure?
Sure. There's a couple things. Number one, I was on a podcast a couple of months ago and I was interviewed and I got asked a question I've never been asked before. And that was, Dave, have you ever done a firewalk for veterans?
For who?
And I went, for veterans.
Veterans, okay.
And I said, you mean specifically? And they said, yeah. And I go, no, why? What's going on? They said, we have 300 vets. You're aware of the suicide rate, right? I'm like, yeah. And it's like 22 a day, right? She goes, no, that's not even close. That's only if they leave a note. It's more like 40 to 50 a day. I said, okay, I can see where you're going with this. I got a pretty good idea why a vet takes their life. So what do you want from me? You want me to come do this? And they said, would you? And I said, yeah, I'm all in. And so I said, so give me a couple of days to think about this. Let me mull it over in my head. And I woke up that night, literally in the middle of the night, and I woke up and it came to me like my whole life has come down to this moment. And so we created what's called Operation Do No Harm. And so I also realized there was 4 categories of people. Number 1, yes, veterans. Number 2, first responders. Number 3, single mothers. And number 4, kids that have been abused and neglected. So now we created the 501c3 around Operation Do No Harm. And now a company can come hire us, but we can offer this dynamic to them. Yes. They want to hire me because they're launching a new product. We'll do a double. Launch your product and invite 300 veterans or first responders or moms or whatever category works for you. That's and then that way they can make a donation to Operation Do No Harm. It's a complete write-off.
Right.
Then Operation Do No Harm hires Firewalk Productions, and we come in and do all the heavy lifting and all the work.
Makes sense.
They get all the credit. We get 0. We don't need any credit. We don't care.
Right.
So there's that element now. So I'm just saying, Operation Do No Harm is we're moving forward. We did our first event in Modesto, California on April 12th and 13th. We're going back. And now I've got corporate sponsors coming forward going, we'd like to be a part of that. Oh, can we put
That's why I have to pause you there, because I want to make sure you listeners catch that. Your services that you believe in, get them in front of the people that will appreciate them. Then the sponsorship starts happening. Focus on getting the service. And
right.
I love how you said, single moms, first responders, the children that have been abused, and veterans. That is specifically the group. Those 4 groups of people need this service. He figured out a way to take it. It's in front of them. Sponsorship starts happening. It does not happen the other way around. You don't just go bang on it. Hey, I want to sponsor. No, your services need to be touching the people that actually give a shit about it and really need it. So,
and so it goes both ways too, right? Because you're bringing your people from your company into this, right? So now on Monday morning, when they come to work, they're going, look what we did. Look what XYZ company did.
Yeah.
We just played a big role in saving 300 veterans' lives.
Yeah.
So what does that do to the team, to the company, and the camaraderie of that company? I mean, it unites them in a way that is unbelievable. And we're doing all the stuff that you and I just talked about. We're doing that board break. We're doing that heart hug. We're doing the oils. We're doing all that stuff. So the bottom line is they get a write-off. And is that going to make them look good in their community when they go, when it's all done and they get the publicity? Sure is. Look what XYZ company did. They just saved 300 veterans' lives.
Right.
So it's such a win-win, because here's what we know. The government's not going to do shit. It's not going to happen. It's got to. It's
having that conversation this morning. I mean, the constant Trump. Man, I don't even want to bring his name up. Between Trump and Biden, I'm like, I don't even want to watch the news. I can't wait to get to this interview. So go ahead.
Well, so it's going to be you and I.
Right.
It's going to be the people, and never underestimate what a small group of people can do to change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Period. That's not going to happen from a political standpoint. You're hanging your hat on bullshit. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. All they're going to do is argue. That's all they've ever done. And how far has it gotten? It's not far.
Pretty much.
So the bottom line is that this is a really great way for a company to bring recognition to them, and awareness and attention, and it puts them in a very, very positive light. And from a CEO's perspective, who writes the check to do this, they can look back on this and go, "Whoa. That was probably the greatest thing we've ever done as a company, as a unit, by far." So they get it all, right? They get to motivate their team. They get to help save these veterans' lives, or the kids or moms or the first responders. And they get all that recognition that, their community looks at them. It's just, and then again, they start working together knowing they've done that. So what happens? Production goes boop. just like that. Beautiful thing. By the way, one other thing I'll add.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do have what's called the Dave Albin FireWalk Academy.
Yeah, that's what I was
yeah. So what that is it's an event I do up here in the Appalachian Mountains in North Carolina. I live up here in the App Mountains. I'm in the northwestern part of the state. I border Tennessee and Virginia. And
I've been to App State.
Have you been to App State University? Have you really? Yeah, very cool.
So you're right. Boone, North Carolina, baby.
Boone, North Carolina, baby. Yeah. So I'm 25 minutes west of Boone. We take you to Boone as part of the academy, but most of it we do over here on the New River, and in this quiet, beautiful, quaint little area called Ashe County. Right. And so the academy is 5.5 days. There's nothing like it on earth. So basically, we have a whole variety of people coming. We have a CEO of a corporation can come, or they send somebody from the H&R department that comes to us. We have entrepreneurs, we have business owners, we have trainers, we have coaches. And so they come spend 5.5 days with me, and I teach them all this stuff.
Right.
I teach them the value of storytelling. I teach them how to do the firewalks, how to do the board breaks, the brick break, the arrow break, the rebar bend, the glass walking, all of it. How to talk to a chamber of commerce, how to talk to fire marshals, how to get your permits, insurance. I cover all of it. So when you leave here and you go back to your respective community, you can do it all. You can do it. You can, a company could hire you. You can do stuff for your own company. You can do it for the community, kids, mom, whatever. It's a beautiful academy. I do it once a year. We do it in October. I keep it small for obviously specific reasons. I don't want it out of hand. I don't want to go. I try to keep it like somewhere, 11 to 18 people is typically our sweet spot. And then that way I can give everybody a one-on-one service, and we all get to know each other, and they get to sell using my name. I graduated from the Dave Albin FireWalk Academy. Oh, who's Dave Albin? Well, you know who Tony Robbins is? Yeah, well, that's his FireWalk guy.
That's his FireWalk guy.
He's the guy that got hired by Google and NASA, and Notre Dame, and Virginia Tech, and Remax, and the EO organization, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And now they can become part of Operation Do No Harm, which is getting ready to go viral. The hat I'm wearing, this is the American Weed Company. They're creating a cannabis strain now, specifically a peptide that's specifically for veterans and PTSD and depression.
Wow.
So they're working really, really closely now, with the Veterans Administration. These guys are awesome. They came to our event in Modesto. We have the Modesto Sunrise Rotary, Ed and Ralph and all those guys over there where we did our event, which we're going back next year. My friends over at Zippo, they designed a lighter for Operation Do No Harm. This right here says Operation Do No Harm. This is all raised lettering right here. And then on the back, it's got, the name of the Rotary and the date of the event. And so we give one of these to every participant. They love it. They love this thing. Who doesn't love a Zippo lighter? Come on.
Well, of course, Zippo loves it too.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they love us. We love them. In fact, when I told them what was going on with Operation Do No Harm, they said, "Hey, can you come up to Bradford to the plant?" And I said, "Yeah." And so they literally took me on a tour of the plant. They don't do that. When you get up there, if you want a tour of Zippo, they have a giant museum, and you can go to the museum and hang out all day if you want. But they don't take you to the plant. They took me to the plant. It was so magical, man. Talk about taking a step back in time. A lot of people don't realize, Bladsdale started the company in 1931. He manufactured his first lighter in 1932, right in the middle of the Great Depression. And not only did he start the company in the Great Depression, you got 100% money back guarantee. Do you realize if your Zippo lighter ever breaks, you send it back, they'll give you a new one? Yeah, no questions asked. In fact, they've got a whole area there in the museum that shows the ones that have been run over by tractors and tanks, and it's unbelievable. Yeah, they send them a new lighter. I love that. It's just, talk about an entrepreneur. Go study Zippo, man. You want to see entrepreneurship at its finest? There you have it. Great example. By the way, to this day, as of probably this year, Zippo has manufactured somewhere in the area of 800 million lighters.
Right.
It's crazy, man. It's just, it was so fun. I've had the honor. I've done events at NASA and Notre Dame. I've been to some really cool places. But I got to tell you, man, my trip to Bradford to the Zippo plant was spectacular. So anyway, I got companies like that. We need as many as I can get. Right now we're looking for a coffee company. So we're looking at Blackout Coffee and Black Rifle. So one of them hopefully is going to step up, and we're going to bring them into the mix. So, bottom line, you got a company out there and you want some name recognition. You want to be part of something really, really powerful, and, it's a write-off. Just make a donation to Operation Do No Harm. And
I know personally the again, as a coach, educator, the single mom thing is definitely going to, as a former fitness guy, the single mom thing will definitely speak to me. And I'm out here in West Palm Beach, so there's Tony Robbins faithful out here.
I was going to say he lives right down the road from you.
Right down the road. So the way I close out all my shows, Dave, is I want you to just use your imagination a little bit. The young Dave, he's got the pistol in his mouth. He's in dress. He's doing all sorts of things. I want you to pretend that young man is in here now. Just give him some words of encouragement, and we'll officially close.
I think the two most important times of anybody's life is the moment they're born and the moment they figure out why. There is a divine purpose for you. And I know this, a universal code. If you help enough people get what they want in life, you'll always get what you want. One of my mentors said something to me, as one I never forgot, ever. And that was, Dave, he said, look, every human on this planet has two lives. And the second one starts when you realize you have only one.
Oof.
Viktor Frankl, I'm going to steal Victor's line. I think Viktor Frankl gave us the greatest example of the human spirit of any other person that's walked the planet. And that is, if you don't know, if you haven't read his book, Man's Search for Meaning, get that book. It's not easy. It's not an easy book. Victor was in Auschwitz, and they took everything from him. They stripped him of everything, just like they did everybody. Imagine waking up every single day, not knowing whether you're going to the chamber today, living with that 24/7. Can you imagine how much pain and how much fear is running through the veins of your soul? Scary as hell. They assassinated his family. You were standing outside in the cold naked. You hadn't eaten in a week. So, they took everything from you. They stripped you of your dignity. But here's what Viktor Frankl figured out. He says, there's one thing you can't take from me. I have to let you take it. I have to relinquish it. And that's my attitude. And so he created a divine purpose. And that purpose was, someone has to get out of here to tell that story, to tell it. And that's what got him out. And that's really it. It's all about finding that purpose. The reason a vet takes their life is because they lose their purpose. They go to basic, they go to training, then they get deployed, they learn how, they're taught how to kill. They get over there and they move and work as a unit. You and I are keeping each other alive every single day. And then all of a sudden that big day comes that they all dread. And that's, you have to go home. And when you go home, it all goes away. Right? You lose that connectivity, that camaraderie disappears, because now you're fragmented. You're living all over the country. And the next thing you know, depression sets in. And when depression sets in, the next thing you know, what are they reaching for? Alcohol or drugs, and we lose them. So what we're doing with Operation Do No Harm is we're rekindling and reigniting that purpose. And now because when we did the event in Modesto, and what we're going to do going forward, when they do the FireWalk, I'm telling them, look, guys, this is a 1,000-year-old ritual. This has been around, cultures around the world have been doing this for 1,000 years. This just isn't some Tony Robbins trick that he learned. This is a big deal. The Tahitians, the Polynesians, the Hawaiians, the Native American Indians, the people of India, the people of Portugal, the Spaniards, all of them. The Native American Indians up here where I live, the Cherokees, they all firewalked. And it all came around a divine purpose. So the bottom line is this. Every human on this planet has a story. And that's what we live off of. We create that story. Everything that happens to us, I don't care how good it is or how bad it is, we create a story. We are the architect of that story. You want to change your life? Change your story. So I never answered your question. They can find us at www.firewalkadventures.com. That's FireWalkAdventures with an S, all one word.com.
Well,
the Academy.
I'll put that in the show notes, so you're fine.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Right.
Anyway, so that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. And before I say anything else, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. You guys, host. People don't realize how hard this is. There's a lot of work, and it takes dedication and loyalty. You've got to be all in, and especially to have the kind of success as a show that you're having. So again, thank you for having me. And if you ever want to do this again, let me know. I'd be happy. I'd be proud to do it.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. And I did get goosebumps when you said, when you figure out when you're born. Well, the two most important days, because I use this, I say that all the time as well. And the context, it is such a real thing. When you're born and when you figure out why, I'm telling you, listeners, teammates, I refer to you listeners as teammates because you guys have been with me for so long. You know how true that actually is. When you start figuring out why you're here, there's absolutely no substance, nothing, no bigot, nobody is going to stop you. I mean, you've heard countless people come on the show. I reemphasize it every day. Just keep going, keep going, keep going, because this world is a long world. And you just said it, two lives. Just go after it, change your story. All right. So with all that, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.